Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. My name is Sarah Willoughby. I'm the author of He's Making Diamonds, A Teen's Thoughts on Faith Through Chronic Illness, and the host of the Diamonds Conference. And today I'm here with Nicole. She's an amazing person. She's a member of the Diamonds Conference staff. She is my writing mentee. She is my friend. And so she's got a lot of wisdom to share, and I'm really excited to get into it because writing is hard. And chronic illness is hard, and you put them together and they can seem impossible, but Nicole and I are living proof that they're not. So hi, Nicole.
Hi, thank you for having me on today. I'm not used to doing this stuff, but it's exciting.
I'm so glad that you said yes. So we're just going to jump into it because we have a short amount of time. So the first question is, how does chronic illness, both yours and your characters, play a role in your current work in progress?
Okay, good. Try to make this simple. So I currently am writing a historical fiction diary story about a girl who lives in England during the German bombings. And I have two characters who have chronic illness. One, I wasn't planning on them having chronic illness, but it kind of just happened. My main character, her name is Wendy. She ended up contracting a very rare disease that ends up leaving permanent chronic illness struggles later on. So she went from being very healthy, active person to now she's going to be struggling with this chronic illness, that joint pain and fatigue, probably for the rest of her life. Wow, one of the characters who had chronic illness from the very beginning. His name is Lucas. He's
my favorite.
I can't pick my favorite, but he's one of the best. He deals with chronic rage attacks and panic attacks, and that is his main part in this, not main part, but kind of just what he embodies in the story, is struggling through living a life in Britain when, if you had that kind of thing, you were pushed under the rug. You were not supposed to be seen in society because you were considered to have mental issues. And so his life story is about how he's had to live a life that is being pushed under the rug because of the society he lived in at that time.
Yeah, so that's interesting, like the historical factor of that. I imagine that takes extra care in writing a character with chronic illness.
Because you really have to, especially just with historical fiction in general, you have to study what the mindset was at that time, what happened in the lives of the people who struggled with this kind of thing. Also looking around the world of what was happening around the world at that time. So it takes a lot of research to be able to write a life with chronic illness in World War II, because it is a very different world than we live in now. People were more understanding, a little bit more understanding in this time, while that time period people were less understanding of what people with chronic illness had to go through.
Yeah, so how does your chronic illness affect your writing?
So basically, to sum down the chronic illness that I have, along with Sarah, I have chronic Lyme disease. And with that, of course, comes with many other smaller illnesses that go into the big bubble of Lyme. I also deal with panic attacks, the same as Lucas. And with Lyme, there's joint pain, fatigue, and I have an IgA deficiency. So that means airborne illnesses my body cannot fight because I do not have IgA. So how that kind of intertwines with my writing is Lucas having chronic panic attacks and rage attacks that I have dealt with in a personal level. And then Wendy, who just had chronic illness, a lot of the symptoms she's going to be dealing with from the disease that she got caught, its name is typhus, has a lot of the similar symptoms of Lyme disease. So in many cases, what she's going to be experiencing through the rest of the story, I live with it on a daily basis. So both of these characters are an embodiment of my life with chronic illness, which is kind of funny that Wendy accidentally got chronic illness because she is the character that the story's thoughts are from. So kind of ironic that she contracted chronic illness because my brain has a chronic illness life. So that's how my chronic illness story intertwines with theirs.
Yeah. Well, like I think even of like Kara Swanson's books, she wrote Dust and Shadow, and her character has magical powers, not a chronic illness, but reading it as someone who has a chronic illness, I was like, well, all the things she's experiencing I really relate to because of my illness. And Kara as well has Lyme disease and has battled her own chronic illnesses. So it's interesting how that affects our writing, whether it's blatant or not.
Yeah, because it just becomes, because every character you have has a piece of you. And so how our lives do go into those stories. And just as readers, I do wonder what readers, when they're reading our books, if they don't have a chronic illness, like wondering, where do these people get this stuff? Like, where does this come from? But it really does become a part of your story, because your story in many ways can be pieces of your life, and your characters are pieces of you that you put into them. So it's just very interesting how chronic illness is so quickly put into the story, even without you realizing you've done it.
Yeah, it's very true. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question. What has the hardest thing about writing a character who struggles with the same thing you do? What has been the hardest thing, sorry, about writing a character that has, like there are parts of Wendy and Lucas and their physical health challenges, mental health challenges that you have experienced yourself.
That's a really good question. I'll kind of focus on Lucas because he's the one who's had the illness the longest. Lucas's panic attacks are extremely hard to write in some ways, because often when I would write his panic attacks would be right after I would have one myself. So for anybody who's dealt with it, it's a confusing time after a panic attack. Sometimes I can't even remember what really happened at that time. My body's just so tired after having this experience. And then taking that and having to relive through some of the things that I've struggled with panic attacks through Lucas. And yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things, was just reliving some of those situations and having to work through all the things that I thought happened that weren't really happening. And also putting into words, because part of Lucas's character, why I gave him panic attacks, is because I had just started to experience them myself when I actually was writing the book. And I thought about it and I was like, so many people did not understand what I was going through. There was only a few people who had experienced panic attacks before that could understand. And a lot of my friends, seeing this happening in my life, wanted to know how they could help me, like what was going on in my head at that time. And I could not explain it to them. And I realized not many people do understand what goes on in the mind of somebody who has panic attacks or rage attacks. So having to put my thoughts into words through Lucas's words was probably another really hard thing to do, because oftentimes I didn't even understand what happened in my own mind. But in a way, it did also help me, because I was forced to sit down and relive some of that stuff that I wanted to forget, and then find a way to put it into words so that I could explain it to my friends later on of how they could help me, instead of trying to just deal with it on my own. So just reliving it and having to put it into words was some of the hardest part of Lucas's experience. And it's going to be hard for Wendy too, putting those feelings into words of what it felt like to be tired, for your hands to hurt when you can't do anything with your hands. It's going to be hard, but it's so important to share what it's like to other people.
Yeah, that's really true, really powerful, really true. So a follow-up question, like, what are ways that help, like you said, reliving it is hard. What are ways that you handle that or that have helped you handle that?
Ooh. Writing. Often, well, if you guys have watched the Diamonds Conference, which I seriously think you should, you've probably seen the past conference of the pop-up Kaisers. That is my family. And on my mom's side of the screen, the pop-up Kaiser was my brother. And my brother has helped me a lot. My whole family, my sister and brother especially, have helped me so much through panic attacks. But what he would do is that he would let me talk. I'm a person who thinks out loud. I have to talk and process. And so he would let me process it. And then being able to sit down in the story and in many ways just hop into a different world that is not my own. That helps too. Hopping into Lucas's shoes, and that it's a different kind of problem, but it's the same at the same time. So going through that would be processing with my family or my brother, talking about what I could use. I pre-write some things that I want to express in the story, and then I don't I don't really know how I do it exactly. It's just I have to sit down in a quiet space and just think about it. And because I tend to not think about things that I have struggled with. And so sitting down and thinking about it, talking with people is the reason why I'm able to write those scenes, is that sometimes you have to talk out loud because your writing is talking out loud in a way, because your character has to speak your thoughts. So just talking with people really helped me.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I know at least for me, it's easier to share something with one person first
Mhm.
before I'm sharing it with everyone. And in a way, a book is sharing it with everyone
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. So getting to talk with someone that you trust and that's safe and that can help you. Yeah, that's great.
it's very
Well, we
important.
are out of time, but thank you so much, Nicole. Guys, I think we're going to have to do a part two because I have a lot more questions and Nicole has a lot more wisdom. um, but yeah, so thank you for watching. We will see you. I will see you with the next video. Like, subscribe, comment. Are you writing a character with a chronic illness? We would love to hear. But see you guys soon.